number 184, graphing the tangent mother graph, y equals tan x. Well, what might sound like a good strategy, which is what we've done with sine and cosine, is to graph 0, pi over 2, pi, and 3 pi over 2, and then of course 2 pi again. For sine and cosine, it works out pretty nice. However, with tangent, here's the problem. If you do tangent of 0, you're going to get 0, right? Because you're going to get 0 over 1. Okay? If you do tan 90, which is what pi over 2 is, you're going to get undefined. Okay? If you do tan 180, which is pi, you'll get 0 again. So you're just going to get 0 undefined, 0 undefined, and 0. This is a very boring graph. It doesn't tell us much about what's happening with tangent. Therefore, since this has limited help, we need to look at the first quadrant. We need to look at the 30, the 45, and the 60 degree reference angles. So what we'll do is we'll go from 0 all the way to pi. We're going to take a look at, well, pi over 6, pi over 4, pi over 3. Then we're going to look at, what's the next one? Well, pi over 2 is the 90. Then we're going to do 2 pi over 3, 3 pi over 4, and then 5 pi over 6. We're going to look at those. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Those 9 reference angles. Here we go. If you do tan 0, you get 0. If you do tan 30, you get root 3 over 3. Now, how am I getting this? It's real simple, guys. It's the 30-60 right triangle. You got to know your 30-60s. There's your 1, there's your 2, there's your root 3. So, tan 30 becomes 1 over root 3, which is root 3 over 3. Then we're going to do tan of 45. That's the right isosceles. That's definitely 1 because you're looking at each of these two sides the same. So tangent 45 is 1 over 1. Then you get root 3 and so on. Then you finally get your undefined. So we get a pretty cool display of what the graph is going to eventually look like. So what we're going to do now is let's go ahead and make a graph based on these values. Now what I do is I went ahead and typed in, you can do tangent of 30, you'll get 0.577, and you'll get 1 for tangent 45, tangent 60, you get 0.732. So let's take a look. Let's zoom in on what's happening. We know, well, at least let's go back to some of the other information that we had. At least this is somewhat useful. We know that from 0 to 2 pi, we have 2 undefineds. We're definitely undefined at 90 and 270. So why don't we go ahead and just try to do a typical graph. So here you are at 2 pi. Here you are at pi. So we got 3 pi over 2 and pi over 2. We're definitely undefined at the 90s. Whew. So we're definitely going to have what are referred to as vertical asymptotes. In other words, f of, if you call it f of pi over 2, does not exist. It gives you an undefined. Okay? And the reason is because, if you think about it, remember what tangent means. Tangent means opposite over adjacent. In other words, actually, it means opposite leg. It means opposite leg over adjacent leg. Well, think about it. If you're at 90, can you take an opposite leg? You can't. You cannot do an opposite leg. So therefore, that's why it's undefined. Now, let's zoom in here. Now we're going to take a look at what's happening before the 90. Before the 90, some things happen. At 0, you're getting 0. Okay. What's this? 30 degrees. What's this? 45. What's that? 60. So here you are. This is pi over 2, which is definitely 90 degrees. So halfway is 45. Then you got a 60 in there, and you got a 30 in there. Okay. Now the 30 gets you 0.577. That's going to take us to, let's go ahead and let's put the 1 here. Okay. At 30, we're at 0.577, which is a little bit more than half. A little bit more than half. All right, a little more than half. 1 is at 45. And then 1.732, which is what square root of 3 is. So if that's 1, this would be about 2. So we're going to be a little bit further up, closer to the 2. Look what's happening. You're starting to get this. You're getting this. You're getting this shape. Okay? Now, let's go ahead and take a look at what would happen at negative 45. Negative 45 degrees. Where are you? You're going to be in quadrant 4. You're going to be dealing with negative 1. Plus 1, plus 2. Negative 1, right here. So we're going to be right here. Now, negative 30 degrees. Tangent 30 is 0.577, because it's going to be root 3 over 3. But we're going to be in the negative side. So now we're going to be a little bit more than halfway. And then, of course, we're going to be at negative 1.732. So if this is 1, whew, if that's negative 1, right about there would be about negative 2. So you're going to be at the negative 60 degrees. It's going to take you right about here. So now you're going to be at this. Because you're going to have yet another vertical asymptote. Okay. Now, what do you think's going to happen in quadrant 2? Because this would be, actually, this is quadrant 1. This would be quadrant 2 up to 180, and this would be quadrant 3 over here, right? Quadrant 4. So let's go ahead and take a look at what would happen. Well, we would then have, well, pi over 2 gives you the undefined. There's your undefined, right? Then you have negative 1.73. So we're over here again at the, what is that, tangent 120 degrees, right? Which is 2 pi over 3. So 5 pi over 6 is right here, 3 pi over 4 is right here, 2 pi over 3 is right here. So 2 pi over 3, it gives you that negative 1.7. So somewhere over here. Okay? Negative 1 for the 45. So the 45s are all 1s and negative 1s, and then negative 0.577, so a little bit more than half. So here you are. And then what's going to happen here? Whew, same way. So you're going to keep getting these little kind of zigzag shaped curved tangent lines. Not really sure how to describe them. This would be referred to as what's called a point of inflection, though. Similar to that of when you're doing a point of inflection, yeah. When you're doing a cubic function. So anyhow, this is tangent, and this pattern would continue all through. So you're going to end up with a lot of undefines at the 90s, or in other words, at the pi over 4, pi over 2s. The pi over 2s are going to give you the undefines. And looks like you're going to get zeros at the zeros and pi's. So you're going to get a 0 at 0, a 0 at pi, a 0 at 2 pi. Okay? And of course that makes sense from our unit circle. So it all goes back to the unit circle. It goes back to 3060. We're obviously going to make some more videos on tangent, but just make sure you know the basic concepts, where you're going to have undefines, where you're going to have zeros, and you should be in good shape. So, questions or concerns? Send me an email. Good times.